Hello. Historically, contactless cards have been used as identifiers and access control systems. You can now see the names of the most popular card formats on the screen. Depending on the chosen format, identifiers can have different form factors. For example, they can be not only in the form of a card, but also as a key fob or bracelet, have varying reading ranges, and differ in their level of protection against cloning. Creating duplicate cards is one way to compromise the system. With a copy of the identifier given to a third party, an intruder can gain access to the company's premises. Employees can clock in for each other, thereby making the timekeeping inaccurate, and so on. Among the formats that have no protection tools at all are eMarine and HID ProxCard II. We do not recommend using them for identification and access systems as the sole identifier. And about how to set up the system to work in multi-factor authentication mode, where an additional condition for access can be, for example, biometrics, we discuss in a separate video. Cards of formats such as Mifare and HID iClass are already protected against cloning. For instance, iClass identifiers use the SIO encryption algorithm. This is a proprietary solution developed by specialists at HID Global. At this time, we are not aware of any instances where cards of this format have been compromised. Mifare identifiers represent a whole family of cards, some of which, like Mifare Classic, have a number of known vulnerabilities, which on one hand does not guarantee the security of transmitted data, but on the other hand significantly increases the level of security compared to, for example, eMarine or HID ProxCard II. For those locations where the highest level of security is required, we recommend opting for Mifare cards. They use the AES encryption algorithm to protect data. This is an algorithm created in early 2000s by the National Institute of Standards and Technology. Currently, this is the most widely used symmetric encryption algorithm employed to protect data across various industries. Furthermore, it is important to note that having cards with protection is not a complete panacea against cloning and unauthorized access. It is equally important to handle them correctly. This is exactly what this video is about. On the Sigur side, we have done everything to make working with Mifare cards convenient. The system setup itself does not take much time, and the process of issuing cards to employees or guests of the company is simple, and looks no different from how it would be with regular cards. First, we will configure the software to work with cards in secure mode. Then, we will reprogram the readers. And finally, we will issue the cards. When the card operates in secure mode, the access identifier is recorded in the card's memory and encrypted using a special key that only the reader and the card will know. Let's look at how to set up secure identification in Sigur using Mifare Plus S cards and MR100 readers as an example. We'll start with the settings in the Sigur software. For this, let's go to the client program. In the File menu, select Settings, Contactless, Identification. Let's select Tab to Plus Card. As the pass identifier, we must select data from memory. Card type, plus S. We leave the memory block number where the identifier will be written as default. Let's create a secret key for accessing memory by clicking the Generate Key button. If your cards operate in secure mode in other systems as well, you can change the block number and key values manually according to the data from those external systems. For security, it is necessary to keep the information about the block number and all keys confidential. Next, you need to configure the readers to work with the secure area of access cards. In Sigur, there are several options for loading the reading configuration onto the readers. Historically, the very first option was to create a special master card, in which all reading settings for the readers are recorded. If the Sigur reader has been programmed in advance, you first need to perform a hardware reset. To do this, you simply need to disconnect the power from the reader, connect the green and yellow wires together, power the reader, and then disconnect the wires. If the reader was previously programmed, it will emit a characteristic sound signal upon a successful reset. So, let's create a master card for the Sigur reader. To do this, we return to the client software, go to the File menu, Settings, and Contactless Identification. After setting all the necessary parameters and connecting the desktop reader to the computer's USB port, we click the button to issue the Sigur Master card. Next, place the card on the reader until the corresponding message about successful writing. Next, we will configure the reader using the created master card. Disconnect the power from the reader. After powering it on, within 10 seconds, bring the master card close to the reader and wait for the sound signal. Programming of the reader is complete. The second option for programming readers is to use a configuration file and the Sigur app for smartphones with the Android operating system. The file can be transferred to the reader in two ways. The first is to first save the file to disk and then transfer it to the smartphone by any convenient method. The second way is to send the file to the specified email address and then open the email on a smartphone with the Sigur app installed. We'll use the first method. Let's save the file to the disk and transfer it to the smartphone. Then we open the receive file using the Sigur app. We find the necessary reader in the list and select the option to update the reading configuration. When prompted by the app, enter the default service password for Sigur. We wait for the loading to finish, and at this point, the programming of the reader is complete. It is worth noting that the first two options will work even if the Sigur MR100 readers are used outside of their native system, as part of a third-party access control system. And the third, newest option for loading the card reading configuration onto the reader is through the OSDP interface. This is our SSDP setup. It allows you to upload the indication profile, encryption, firmware, and reading configuration to the reader directly from the software interface. To do this, return to the client program. Set the parameters in contactless ID window. Save by clicking OK. Then we will go to the Equipment tab. We will select Access Point and enter Settings. Next, we open OSDP Devices tab. For the reader we need, we click the Configuration Loading button in the list. The reader will emit a characteristic indication that informs the user of the successful application of the settings. We will click OK to continue. It's time to issue secure identifiers to the employees. For this, we will need the familiar ACR 1252 reader. The process is completely transparent for the operator and is no different from using a regular card. We will select Staff from Staff List. Let's check the action for reading the card is set to grant access to the current object. Bring new card near desktop reader. At this moment, it will automatically switch to secure mode and all necessary parameters will be saved in its memory. Let's confirm the changes by clicking the Apply button. Now let's check that the card has switched to secure mode and that the reader is responding correctly to it. Let's go to the Monitoring tab. Hold card near MR100 reader. The reader accessed the encrypted memory area, read the correct value from it, and transmitted it to the controller. An event followed, access granted. Now let's bring a foreign card close. The reader is not responding to it at all. Similarly, it will ignore unissued blank cards and cards from other objects. Thus, using secure mode will provide you with the highest level of security that contactless identifiers are capable of. Use modern protection technologies along with Sigur. That's all from me. Until we meet again.